All right, everybody, welcome, and thanks for looking and taking the time to work on this screencast on Regents Prep for our Hudson Valley class. We're going to look at one of the document sets today. Now, on your Regents exam in June, your document set questions will appear as a pair. You will have two sets of documents. Each worth 5 points, maximum 5 points apiece. So today we're going to practice one of the documents that we are, a document set rather, that we're going to be covering in class this week during our discussion of Reconstruction following the Civil War. Just a couple of items as we begin. This will be the first of what will hopefully be many tutorial videos that I will create to help us prepare for the Regents, and some will be on the short answer docs, some will be on the civic literacy essay. I will label these for you, and you can store these, and they will also be stored for you on your Google Classroom stream. So feel free to bookmark these and to put questions underneath the videos as they appear. If you put a question underneath the video down below, I will be able to respond to it if something's unclear. One of the cool things about these video tutorials is that you can stop and start and you can pause while you're working on an assignment. For example, this assignment, I will give you a paper copy this week on this particular document set, and you can use this tutorial video as you're working on the document and the two questions that follow. So let's hop right into this here. Let's look at the task at the top of the page here. Now, what I don't like about the book that I got you guys, the short essay source book, is that the instructions actually appear after the documents. So for convenience sake, I'm putting the instructions in these tutorials at the beginning of the documents, and we'll start with this. We're going to read and analyze the following documents, applying your social studies knowledge and skills to write a short essay of 2 or 3 paragraphs in which and it lists 2 bullet points. Now, these bullet points are going to be identical on each of the document sets that you take on your Regents exam. The first document set, you will have to describe the historical context surrounding these documents. And the second bullet point on the first document set, you're going to have to identify and explain the relationship between the events and or ideas found in these documents. And you get to choose whether you're going to write about cause and effect, whether you will explain the relationship as one of similarity or difference, or you can choose turning point as one of your relationships that you choose to write about. What I will ask you as we go through the second semester and the rest of the year as we gear toward preparing for the Regents, when you're doing these short answer essays, I would like you to mix up from documents to documents. In other words, if we do another document next week, and you do cause and effect, for example, for document set 1, do cause and effect for one document set, and then do similarity or difference on the next, or then do turning point. I'd like you to kind of become proficient in each of the 3 identification and explaining the relationships. Don't always rely on cause and effect, in other words, or similarities or difference, or turning point. Now, that said, we are only going to be looking at one document set today. And as you can see, it is going to be a document set that you typically are going to see as the first document set on your Regents exam. So bet your bottom dollar in June, you will see an identical box like this in which the first bullet point, you're going to be asked to describe the historical context surrounding the 2 documents. And basically what we're looking for there, class, we're looking for you to explain historical context surrounding the documents. Means you need to explain what connects the 2 documents. What connects the 2 documents in your first bullet point task. The second bullet point task is you're going to choose one of the 3. You're going to identify and explain the relationship between the events and or ideas found in these documents by using cause and effect, similarity or difference, or turning point. Now, one of the things that we'll look at later in this tutorial is the scoring rubric and how this will be scored. And these are scored, these document sets are scored on a 5-point scale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or if you don't complete it, you would get a 0. We're going to focus on what you need to do to earn a 5, and you will see a rubric later in this screencast video that will spell out clearly what you need to include in your responses to earn that 5 and to max out your points. I want you striving for 5 as we do these, both in practice as we lead up to the Regents, and certainly by that point in June, you'll be ready to get a 5 on these, hopefully very easily, by just following the rubric that I'm going to share with you. Also, not spoken here in the instructions, but included in the rubric. Important point. You might want to jot this down or make a mental note or pause and just write this down as I'm commenting here, but not included in the task for this document set, but always, always, always going to be included in the scoring rubric is you need to provide relevant outside information. To max out and get a 5 on these short answer document questions, I want you to get in the habit of including relevant outside information. And a number of you did a great job in this on your final exam for the first half of the Hudson Valley class. So more on that as we move forward. Now that said, let's look at document 1 in this document set. If you look up at the top here, you can tell by what I saved this as on my computer. We're looking at documents related to Dred Scott and the Black Codes. We'll be talking about the Black Codes in the topic we're covering this week in class on Reconstruction. So we've got Dred Scott and the Black Codes are the topics. Let's look at document 1. And from the sourcing information, we're seeing this is coming directly from a Supreme Court case from Dred Scott v. Sanford, and it is dated 1857. So we know that this is a primary source document. This is a Supreme Court archive. This is basically from the ruling of the case. Let's take a look at it together. The right of property, we're at the top, the right of property in a slave is distinctly and expressly affirmed in the Constitution. The right to traffic in it, like an ordinary article of merchandise and property, was guaranteed to the citizens of the United States in every state that might desire it for 20 years. And the government, in express terms, is pledged to protect it in all future time. If the slave escapes from his owner, and no word can be found in the Constitution which gives Congress a greater power over slave property, or which entitles property of that kind to less protection than property of any other description. Basically saying here that owning a slave entitles you to the same legal rights as owning any other piece of property. The only power conferred is the power coupled with the duty of guarding and protecting the owner in his rights. It is the opinion of the court, this is a Supreme Court decision here, it is the opinion of the court that the act of Congress, the Missouri Compromise, which made slavery illegal in the territory north of 36 degrees 30 minutes, except for Missouri, which prohibited a citizen from holding and owning property of this kind in the territory of the United States north of the line therein mentioned, is not warranted by the Constitution and is therefore void. Saying the Missouri Compromise line is void and that neither Dred Scott himself nor any of his family were made free by being carried into this territory. Now, there's kind of a lot to unpack there, okay? Kind of a lot to unpack there, but it's addressing Dred Scott. It's addressing the Supreme Court decision of 1857, which we spent a good amount of time on in class. So that's document 1, Dred Scott and the decision of 1857. Let's take a look now at document 2. Okay, looking at document 2, which is titled The Civil Rights of Freedmen in Mississippi. Freedmen in Mississippi. It's a word we'll be discussing in class. And if you look at the sourcing information at the bottom, this is from the Mississippi Black Codes dated 1865. So I'll read through this as well. I'm not going to offer a lot of commentary in this tutorial video that will provide you any additional outside information, but I am going to read it so you can hear it. Section 1, be it enacted that all freedmen, free Negroes, and mulattoes may sue and may be sued in all the courts of law and equity of the state, and may acquire personal property by descent or purchase, and may dispose of the same in the same manner and to the same extent that white persons may, provided that the provisions of this section shall not be so construed as to allow any freedman, free Negro, or mulatto to rent or lease any lands or tenements except in incorporated cities or towns, in which places the corporate authority shall control the same. That's section 1 of this document. Section 3, all freedmen, free Negroes, or mulattoes who do now and have herebefore lived and cohabitated together as husband and wife shall be taken and held in law as legally married, and the issue shall be taken and held as legitimate for all purposes. That it shall not be lawful for any freedman, free Negro, or mulatto to intermarry with any white person, nor for any white person to intermarry with any freedman, free Negro, or mulatto. And any person who shall so intermarry shall be deemed guilty of felony, and on conviction thereof shall be confined to the state penitentiary for life. And those shall be deemed freedmen, free Negroes, and mulattoes who are of pure Negro blood, and those descended from a Negro to the third generation, inclusive, through one ancestor in each generation, may have been a white person. Section 5 of the same document. Every freedman, free Negro, and mulatto shall, on the second Monday of January, 1866, and annually thereafter, have a lawful home or employment, and shall have written evidence. Excuse me. Just read that again. Every freedman, free Negro, and mulatto shall, on the second Monday of January, 1866, and annually thereafter, have a lawful home or employment, and shall have written evidence. And finally, section 6 of the document, all contracts for labor made with freedmen, free Negroes, and mulattoes for a longer period for a longer period than 1 month shall be in writing. And if the laborer shall quit the service of the employer before the expiration of his term of service without good cause, he shall forfeit his wages for that year up to the time of quitting. One more time on that one. All contracts for labor made with freedmen, free Negroes, and mulattoes for a longer period than 1 month shall be in writing. And if the laborer shall quit the service of the employer before the expiration of his term of service without good cause, he shall forfeit his wages for that year up to the time of quitting. These are all sections included in the Mississippi Black Codes of 1865. That is your second document. So after reading both documents and analyzing the documents, we're going to apply our social studies knowledge and skills to write a short essay of 2 or 3 paragraphs in which you do the following. Again, just to kind of recap the 2 tasks. This task is always going to be the same. Your first bullet point is going to ask you to describe the historical context surrounding these documents. So what I'd like you to do on this written assignment is describe the historical context between the documents we just reviewed, the documents involving the Dred Scott decision and the document involving the Black Codes, the Mississippi Black Codes. The second task is going to involve you identifying and explaining the relationship between the events and or the ideas found in these documents. And you can choose any one of the 3 classes that you want. You can choose cause and effect, you can choose similarity or difference, or you can choose turning point. Entirely up to you, but just be on the lookout for making sure that as we do multiple documents throughout the course of the school year, I'd like you to mix it up and try different approaches with this first document set. Try cause and effect 1 week, and then maybe the next week do similarity and differences. Make sure you're getting experience covering all the different types of relationships that you can identify and explain. Now, as promised, I want to go over the rubric and how to earn a 5. Again, the goal here, I want you to be thinking strive for 5. Strive for 5, because if you miss a point on the multiple choice, you got 28 multiple choice questions, and let's say you miss 1 or 2, you can more than make up for that by getting 5 on both of these short answer documents once we sit for the Regents in June. So let's take a look at the rubric and what's expected. And basically what we've got here, this is the rubric that will assist you in answering document set 1, which is going to be typically the first set of documents on your exam. First set of documents is going to ask you to explain the historical context of the 2 documents, and it's going to ask you to explain and identify the relationship using cause and effect, using similarities or differences, or using turning point. So to earn a 5 on this document, set, to earn a 5, look at each of the bullet points. We need to thoroughly develop both aspects of the task in depth by discussing the historical context surrounding these documents and explaining the relationship between the events and or the ideas found in the documents. You need to be more analytical than descriptive, okay? You need to be more analytical in your responses than descriptive. You need to analyze or evaluate the information. So be more analytical in your responses than just describing. Explain why. Analyze. You also need to integrate relevant outside information, which we talked about at the beginning of the tutorial. Be sure to include relevant outside information as it relates to the documents. Weave those into your responses. Relevant. And when we say relevant, if we're talking about, for example, the Dred Scott decision, if you're including outside information about the Dred Scott decision, make sure that outside information involves Dred Scott and not 1819's McCulloch versus Maryland, or another Supreme Court case. Make sure that your outside information is relevant to the question or relevant to the documents. And finally, make sure that your answer supports the theme with many relevant facts and or examples from the documents. Make sure that your answer supports the theme with multiple, and keyword many there, multiple relevant facts and or examples from the documents. If you do all those, you'll have a 5. You'll get a 5. Scrolling down, okay, this would be a 4, okay, and you can see what's missing here. You develop both aspects of the task, okay, in depth, or may do so without somewhat unevenly by thoroughly developing one aspect of the task while developing the other aspect in some depth. So if you don't do a thorough job, okay, if you don't do a thorough job of addressing both aspects, you'll score a 4. If it's weighted a little bit in favor of one document as opposed to another one, or if one task is some depth and another is more depth, that might be a reason that you might score a 4. All right. A 3, you would develop both aspects of the task in some depth. A 3 main difference, it'd be more descriptive than analytical. Okay. Not a lot of analyzing in your response, but more descriptive in your response. It includes some relevant outside information to score a 3. And it would include some relevant facts and or examples from the documents. And it also might include some minor inaccuracies in your responses. So these are kind of giving an example of what you need to do to score a 5, a 4, or a 3. You've got a copy of this here. I'm not going to go over 2 and 1 right now, but I don't even want you looking or thinking about scoring a 2 or 1. I want you striving for, you got it, strive for 5 on these. Your assignment for the week is going to be due on Friday, and I would like you to complete the document set on Dred Scott and the Mississippi Black Codes, and using this tutorial video and using your text and your outside information and the knowledge that you've gained as we move through the year so far and using this video. Do a good job on this and strive for 5. If you have questions for me, you can address them in class to me, or you can post a question below underneath the video. Also, these video tutorials I am going to be assigning, and I would like to do it this way, where these are completed outside the classroom so we can focus on our content in class, our PowerPoints, and our daily lessons. So these tutorial videos will be an important component, but I'm going to expect that most of them are to be completed and viewed outside of class for homework on a weekly basis as we go through the balance of the rest of the second semester. Thanks for your attention, girls, and if you have any questions,